Livestreamed, the NFL podcast. Dan, quick, what's 17 times 32?
17 times 32. 17 times 32. That's literally impossible. And I dare anyone in this room to get it right now.
You're asking me?
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. I did get a 39 on a state-mandated math test in 1996, but I could have gotten a 99, and I wasn't getting that answer. So that was a hit piece on the old Zeuser, and yet I'll be a professional about it. Patrick Claybon, Gregg Rosenthal, heroes, Mark Sessler. He got the hell out of Dodge. Nobody knows where he is, but that's all right. We will carry on.
He's at home. He's right there. Probably. No, I don't know where he is. The answer is 544, by the way. And I guess the point of that is there's 32 teams, 17 weeks. You divide 544 by 2, and you get 272 games.
Used to be 256, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. How is everyone on this glorious Thursday? Patrick, thank you once again. I texted Claybon. It's a Claybonaissance on the show lately, and we're really thrilled about it.
It's that time of year, right? I'm doing news this week, and so 3 news shifts on Monday, Tuesday, yesterday, of course, Wednesday. And I thought to myself, I want to spend some time with Dan and Gregg today.
Love it.
And I'm walking by, and you guys are like, hey, so yeah, heck yeah, I want to be here.
Always a big value add. I am a big believer in don't read the comments. Don't read the Reddit board. Don't read the comments. But I got to admit, Dan told me about this phenomenon on our YouTube show, or we put the link up on YouTube of our entire podcast, that the camera stays on for about 30 seconds to a minute afterwards.
Right.
And some people enjoy that 30 seconds to a minute because we didn't really realize it. Who knows what we're doing? Who knows what we're saying? I'm making weird arm motions. And so I went to check it out last week, and Dan's right. And it is kind of funny. And I did check out the comments, which I normally don't, but I was there. I checked out the comments, and it was a lot of, oh, great when Claybon's on. Big value add when Claybon's on. Give me some more Claybon. It was a lot of Claybon in the comments.
You guys underestimate the sheer volume of alt accounts I have on multiple social media sites. It is intimidating. So much work goes into it, but I'm glad to hear it's paying off.
I think those 10, 12 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute after the show ends on the YouTube page, that's the true us. And if anyone's like, oh, is it real? Like, what are they really like? Watch those 47 seconds, and you'll learn so much about all of us. You're going to learn so much about sports media and how to dominate the marketplace today, because Andrew Marchand of the New York Post will be joining us in just a bit. We also will open up the mailbag. We haven't done that in a while. We're going to open up the old mailbox. What's in the box? Nailed it. Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Well, no, you don't even know what the movie is.
Well, now you do.
I mean,
I do.
In theory, you do, but I'm saying it couldn't spoil it.
Well, let's ask the kids.
Maybe you were talking about...
Let's ask the kids behind the glass. Graver, what film is
David Fincher's Seven.
All right.
Well, now you ruined it.
Oops.
Well, and then behind you is Stapleton, a young woman in her 20s.
Like it could have been Pride and Prejudice or something like that.
Stapleton doesn't know who Don Henley is or the Eagles. So it's like you never know what the kids are up to, what they're plugged in on. But there's a lot of things that Stapleton knows that I don't.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a give and a take.
Sliding Doors. Maybe it was Sliding Doors.
I've never seen that movie, but I've referenced it roughly 7,000 times. All right, let's get going here. Before we open up the mailbag, before Andrew joins the show, let's get caught up on the news.
What?
All right, well, listen. It's been a really good start to the Gravedigger era.
Yeah.
But for the first time, I'm gonna have to say you let me down, buddy.
Whoa! I thought that was good.
Wait, you didn't like that?
I made the request, the Gregg's double what's at 58:11 of our last show. I wanted that to be the news drop, but I said, and I thought clearly, Gravedigger, 20 consecutive seconds of that.
Oh, I see.
20 consecutive
He
seconds.
reaches for the button.
What?
Maybe
What?
as the show goes along, you can get the director's cut for us to hear at the end.
I could do that.
That would be great.
I was using the reference file you sent, and I maybe was a little too close to the
It's
reference.
an uptick from last week where I didn't give him a news drop, and then there was just none ready. So that was a tough moment. I was just like, you've seen enough. You've been a part of enough of these shows. Just assume it needs to be there.
I have,
you don't have to hold your hand.
I have a backup one now for the next time that I can run at any time.
He's a pro.
Okay.
And
that's what I say. You learn from your mistakes. You make a mistake.
Justin, on balance, has been an excellent value add, just like the Claybon. But also, there's very important to have honesty in the relationship between host and producer. And that was
constructive criticism. I always look where I can improve.
Love it, buddy.
He knows exactly what to say.
There you go. You're on fire. You're all the way back. Let's start with some news. Gregg is completely in love with the Eagles. It's a thing. He's got a buddy that's in that front office, and you can connect those dots pretty easily.
I liked him before any of that.
He likes the roster too, and that's great. Everything's good. And they made another good move on Wednesday. They signed James Bradberry, the cornerback, to a 1-year, $10 million contract. So he's going to pair up with Darius Slay, who's great. So that's a nice addition. Your thoughts, Gregg, on a Slay-Bradberry tandem in the secondary for Philadelphia?
It's a huge upgrade at their weakest position. I mean, I looked up and down this their starting roster, and I would have said second cornerback was the one spot where they really weren't up to snuff. And yeah, it's a defense that Jonathan Gannon runs where you kind of keep everything in front of you, and it's very safe, and maybe you don't need a great one-on-one corner. You need corners. You need corners in the NFL, and so it upgrades their biggest spot. And I just like the fact that they're trying their best to win football games. I feel like not every team really does that, and they are trying to do that. Don't wait till next year. Try to win right now.
Yeah, the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles was like a case study, and you can't hide bad talent on defense with scheme. You just can't. And so we saw how they addressed it up front. And now all the levels through the draft and free agency.
They're way better at linebacker now with Nakobe Dean.
You just saw tight end after tight end walking down the field over and over again. Just real issues in coverage. And I think Nakobe Dean, and we said it after the draft, even if let's say he did have surgery and he's playing with one arm, it would be an upgrade over what they had up the middle last year. So, yeah, a lot to feel great about.
They are, and it doesn't you don't have to read the tea leaves. We were just talking about it on Tuesday's episode, digging in on where the football cognoscenti is at right now. And there's going to be a lot of people picking the Eagles to win that division, the NFC East. Are they actually a better team than the Cowboys? It's very close, I think. I think they're neck and neck, and I think there's a clear dividing line. It would stun me if the Commanders or the Giants win that division, but I think it feels like a toss-up right now in the East. Here we are on, May 19th, Thursday.
The Cowboys' best players are better than the Eagles' best players. They have a better quarterback. They have better top-tier talent for the most part. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, though, is a nice receiver duo. That now matches up with what Dallas has. But, they don't... Tyron Smith, there's a lot of great players. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. There's a lot of great players. But to me, the Eagles, and maybe it's because I'm doing this projected starter series, they're a better team. They're deep on both lines. I love that. I think they address their weaknesses now, especially with Bradberry. Bradberry was a Pro Bowl cornerback 2 years ago, still young. I think their receiver position was a problem a year ago. Now that's deep. Quez Watkins is like a 3. That makes more sense. I think they're a better team. I think they're a really good team, and that their ceiling is extremely high. It's just as high as the Cowboys. And I think, to me, they're a safer team because they're deeper. They could withstand some injuries.
Yeah, you can make an easy case, right, that Philly got much better in the offseason and Dallas got worse. It's hard to make the case that Dallas got better this offseason. And yeah, with the rest of the division, I would be paralyzed in fear and kind of in the fetal position if the Giants or the Commanders won the division. I would be questioning my understanding.
You'd be in the fetal position.
Yeah, clearly none of this makes sense.
The Bengals came within one
everything.
stop of winning the Super Bowl. So pro football and sports does tend to surprise us.
But I would be much more surprised.
Right. You know who never surprises us? though? The Commanders or the team that used to be named in Washington. They never really
quite frankly
us.
The Giants in the past half decade or so.
That's fair
yeah, I like that thought. Like the NFL Blitz on N64 version of this rivalry, I would take the Cowboys over the Eagles, even though Zeke is he even a player anymore? I don't know. All right, let's move on. Joe Burrow, speaking of the Bengals. He had his first public interview since Super Bowl 56, the 25-year-old quarterback. Excited, obviously, about the new season to come, and discussed Cincinnati's offense, what he believes they can be in the future, and also talked about, yes, that 23-20 loss to the Rams here at SoFi Stadium. There was a play from the game, an image of Bengals receiver Jamar Chase open downfield after Jalen Ramsey slipped on Cincinnati's final offensive play, but instead of an forever memorable touchdown, game-winning score, it ended with Burrow throwing an incomplete pass after being cornered by Aaron Donald. Here's what Burrow had to say about that play.
Yeah, I checked to that go route. I was anticipating throwing it, just didn't quite have the time. So, like I said, we put this behind us. We lost. We had a great year. We're going forward.
I don't even know if I'd want to hear that if I'm a Cincinnati fan. That's just a great what if in the history of really the NFL if he hits on that pass, Claybon. But on the bright side, this kid's got it up here. He's got it in the arm, and he's got Jamar Chase in 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, there's no right way to handle a loss like that, and especially you're 25 years old, and here's like potentially, hey, this could be the thing that you're discussing for the rest of your life, because people play their whole careers and never get that opportunity. But he was not going to change anything. He feels, and the tape shows it, he made the right decision. He ran up against one of the greatest players to ever play football on the biggest stage, and you tip your cap.
It was Donald's time at the end of the day. He made the play, and that was that.
I almost think this Super Bowl has gotten underrated. Like, that was such an incredible fourth quarter. So many different things happened, and for it all to come down to one play where it really went to who the Bengals were as a team, that they were just going to go for it. Remember, that was 4th and 1? Mm-hmm. They had 2nd and 1. They had 2nd and 1, and just as big a play almost as Donald's game-ending play was the play before where Gaines and Donald stopped Samaje Perine, so they couldn't get a yard.
Why was Samaje Perine in that?
That's
situation?
A weird decision. Then the Bengals take a timeout, and I love the chutzpah for him to change the route, and he was right in doing it because they could have gotten either in the end zone or inside the 10. You only had 40 seconds left, and you needed to go try to win that game right there. And Donald beats Quentin Spain, and that sucks. It sucks for a Bengals fan. It was just a great player making such a great play in that moment. But I just it's beautiful when football comes down to that fourth quarter drive where Stafford did so many great things. And then it came down to that one play and Burrow went down swinging. That's how you want to do it.
Look at it this way. If you're an impartial fan and watching that game and enjoying what was a very good game, you missed out on that potential highly dramatic. Listen, Burrow could have overthrown Chase. He could have dropped the ball. You never know what would happen if he gets the throw off. But yes, we were denied that moment. But what we got was Donald making the play, running down the field, tapping on his watch, pointing to the ring finger and saying, "It's my time." That's another highly memorable moment that they'll be playing forever, including at Aaron Donald's Hall of Fame ceremony down the line. Hopefully not in 6 years. Did briefly flirt with retirement. Finally, let us talk about something sad. Tarik Cohen came into the league a few years back, a really exciting little June bug. Is that a description of that type of running back?
I'm not going to call him a little June bug.
Seems derogatory at this point.
He jumps around and he's very quick and fast and all that. Jitterbug? I don't know. And he had some moments, obviously, with the Bears, tore his ACL and missed last season. And this is how they do it now. The live Instagram, a lot of players like to put that live Instagram out there. This is me training. I'm getting ready. Come sign me. And what happens? He blows out his Achilles on a live Instagram. Really sad story, Claybon, for Cohen. You hope he makes it back, but now he's coming off a missed season with a torn ACL. Achilles is a devastating injury for a running back. Just a sad story here.
Yeah, and it highlights the means with which the position brings so much inherent risk for the guys playing it. And here's, as you said, right, a free agent who is now tasked with making public displays of showing how healthy he is, and in that display he hurts himself. And it reminds me of a wide receiver who's concerned about his usage, right? And doesn't, and I think that this highlights that. It's a dangerous spot to be in this particular position coming back from an injury, and I see why some guys are, especially in the college and the high school ranks, are saying, hey, maybe I'll play outside a little bit more because the future is unkind.
It's a bummer too, because his career was so exciting. He had that second year, he had over 1,100 yards from scrimmage. He was also a first-team All-Pro punt returner. It hasn't quite had the same juice since. Certainly was injured last year, so missed almost all of last year. And it was just like a fun player. We need more like Tarik Cohen like players. We need the short kings. We need someone for my children to look up to.
The flautists out there.
The 5'6" guys can go make the NFL. All you have to do is have otherworldly athleticism and combine that with incredible strength and 190 pounds. That's it.
That's it.
But fortunately, he was a 4th-round pick, so he did get another deal, right? And he was able to get some money. Not like he was coming off one of those first-round 5-year type deals.
That's a great point, Mark. Ding. A June bug is like a beetle, so that's certainly not Tarik Cohen's playing type. The jitterbug, whatever, that's jumping all over the place. All right, that's what's happening in the news. All right, let's take a break and then bring on our guest. Welcome back. What the moon landing was to the USSR in 1969, what Nirvana was to hair metal in 91, what Tony Romo was to NFL analysts in 2017, that is what the New York Post's Andrew Marchand is to sports media reporters in 2022.
Whoa.
And now he joins us once again on Around the NFL. What's up, buddy?
Wow, thank you. That's quite the introduction. I very much appreciate it. I've had that comparison made before, so that was very
It's a tough scene because you have your own podcast with another sports media reporter, John Oren. So he's included in that. He has been wiped out like an eclipse.
I will tell John on next. We do a thing called Who's Up, Who's Down at the beginning of the podcast. I'll say, John, it turns out you're down.
Oh, yeah. Big time. We're in, pull back the curtain a little bit. We're in some contract talks right now on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
And that and your success got me.
Is this just a whole thing because you want him to write about us?
No, that's a scoop. We're giving him a scoop right off the bat. But that and your success got me thinking, you have put yourself in tremendous position for a life-altering contract yourself. When it happens, will you report on yourself getting the Tony Romo sports media guy contract?
I will, sources tell me. I will consider that. I will consider doing that.
It is a weird phenomenon that you bring it up because, there have to be reporters in our industry, big names, the guys who break a lot of the news at Schefter, Rappaport, all that floor, that have your type of media news, or at least have a good idea of it, but they probably aren't comfortable or aren't allowed to report on that stuff. Are you ever worried about these guys jumping into your territory?
Well, it's interesting you say that because when you're talking about Tom Brady and Sean McVay and the other Troy Aikmans of the world, you kind of, those are definitely Schefter actually was the first one to say McVay wasn't going to go to Amazon and he's going to coach. And my wife was like, "Why didn't you have that?" And I said, "Oh, she doesn't know anything about it." She said, "Why?" I said, "Adam Schefter." She doesn't know who he is. I said, "Hey, he makes at that point $3 or $4 million a year." And she said to me, "Well, why don't you make $3 or $4 million?" So I said, well, he covers the NFL. I cover media, so but I'm doing fine.
You got the beat covered, and that's why we wanted to connect with you again, because we're kind of like our show, especially this time of year where things slow down a little bit. We're always interested in what's going on in the broadcasting ranks, and this is just the perfect situation right now, both for your gig and also if you're you're someone of a certain level of talent and notoriety as a player and analyst, because the money is out of control right now, and you're getting paid like a quarterback now to sit in a booth and call these games. I'm curious, how surprised are you at how this has exploded? That's part one of the question. And then part two is the Tom Brady move, or the reporting that was done by you. You broke that story. And they have 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls, Fox. We deduced earlier this week on the podcast that it's a wrap. This is the last year for Brady, because he's got to get into that booth and start earning that cheddar for Fox. Do you see that playing out that way with Tom Brady, considering what he's now signed with Fox?
Yeah, I'm not sure with Tom Brady. I mean, you guys know the NFL better than I do, but he had the retirement, in quotes, whatever that was, right? Was that about Bruce Arians? And then the Miami thing with the ownership possibility. You guys know this has been reported by other people, but people I speak to as well in the media game. I mean, that was real. That was possible, of him going to Miami. And so when I think about Tom Brady going to the booth, when that's going to happen, I just think if he can play, he just might continue going. Like, I still think he could be in Tampa this year, and then Miami is a possibility. So I don't think there's necessarily a timetable on this. I think Brady, the money got so crazy that he took this job. But if you look at his comments in the past, he wasn't really looking to do this.
But so in putting that in quotes, Andrew, right, and highlighting the things that he could have done, are you insinuating this could just be a Brady leverage play to make football more attractive?
Well, I just think that this is kind of, I don't want to say, a very prominent agent said to me that this was kind of a hedge, right? You have this, and you have this. And let's just say a couple of years down the road, he tells Fox, you know what, I don't really want to do this. I mean, they're not going to make Tom Brady go every week to do games that he doesn't want to do, especially at the salary that he'd be making at that point. So at this point, it's great for both sides, and maybe Brady will do it. He'll be the next John Madden, and he'll do it for 20 years. I doubt you guys foresee that. I don't really foresee that because I just think he's going to have he has other options. But I just, this is something he has in hand. He even in his comments has not seemed that excited about it. But just got to say, I'm excited. Now back to the, playing.
Imagine signing a 10-year, $375 million deal and being like, that's all right. Nice hedge. Nice hedge for me.
Well, he's Tom Brady. I mean, he's Tom Brady, so he can do what he wants. But look, let's go on the assumption he will be in the booth. I don't know if this really shows when he's going to stop playing. Again, you guys, I know have discussed his retirement in quotes, what that meant, if it meant anything. It just seems like if he plays well again this year, I don't know when he's going to hang it up or why he'd hang it up. I get it. He has this big deal, but Tom Brady's going to be able to make money off the field for eternity as long as he doesn't do anything too.
Although this is a pretty good bird in the hand, but I like your theory. Like, yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's actually, he's going to be able to make other money with the other ventures, but those ventures, you don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how his crypto venture, are going right now. He
got paid cash for that.
Bird in the hand, but I like your theory because it seems strange to me in that it's maybe a little more of an open question whether this contract is signed or not. Makes sense to me. He could just see what's going. And my question for you is what do you think Fox is going to do? Because it's a hedge for Brady. It's also kind of a hedge for Fox, but they have this year in front of them, and they have big games, and they're going to have the most watched games of the year a lot of times at 425, and it's a big decision. And how do you fill this one spot in this year, considering that Brady may or may not be there a year from now? How do you think they handle it?
I think it'll be Gregg Olsen. I mean, they're negotiating now. I think they made a nice offer to start. I think Olsen, if I'm him, I get over my ego and I get into this small club that has a chance to do Super Bowls. He'd be able to do a Super Bowl at the end of this year. And he's in his late 30s and he'd be in prime position to get, one of these number one. Let's say Brady comes in, takes his job, and he gets demoted. Collinsworth in 4 years will be up. That could become a possibility. Ultimately, if you're Greg Olsen, all-pro, great NFL career, but not a Hall of Famer, you're going to have to do well because there's going to be, if Brady hadn't signed, Brady looking over your shoulder and Aaron Rodgers looking over your shoulder.
Brees was looking for that job, right?
Say who that?
Brees was looking for that job too,
Brees,
right?
Yeah, he's still possible to be the number 2 there. So you're always going to have Sean McVay as well. So all those people are always going to be looking over your shoulder unless you do well. So just get the job, do well, and build up your other businesses. And, you can be in that small group with these openings and where the checks are. Maybe you're not going to get the Brady money. You're not going to get the Romo money maybe in the near term, but can you get to 8 figures at some point in the near future? Yeah, I think that's very possible if you're Greg Olsen, if everyone thinks you're great.
Right. Plus he likes it. I mean, that's it comes across on the broadcast. He likes it. And you don't get that with everyone. And I don't know if you'll get that with Brady. And to me, that's why I'm more excited to listen to Greg Olsen than I would have listened to Tom Brady.
And I don't think we got that with Drew Brees either. I was curious what you think about, Andrew, how that played out with NBC, one and done there. And he left his options open in a cryptic tweet that he sent out that had everybody going nuts. But I guess my take on this is, it was a mutual decision, I guess. But at the same time, Brees, accomplished quarterback, obviously one of the greats of all time, but not a lot of experience as a broadcaster. Did NBC believe that they could mold him and bring him along, as it were, or was Brees just not into it and NBC didn't want to be in business with him anymore?
A couple of things there. I mean, they had high hopes, both sides, for him to kind of be the heir apparent to Collinsworth. And he, first off, didn't like doing studio. Studio's just different. It's just more of I think from his point of view, kind of a fan view, where you're just kind of talking and having opinions. And he said publicly, he was on the Dan Patrick show, he liked doing games better. I think if he wants to do games, he should jump back in the booth. And even though Fox is not going to offer him big money to do those games, because if you think about it, Drew Brees takes the year off, doesn't do the NFL, his just stock is going to go down. Like, he's not going to get offered, most likely. I think it's hard to believe he would be ever offered the number 1 job at any of these places if they open down the road. New quarterbacks will retire. He had a year that is looked upon, even though it was really only one bad playoff game, looked upon as not good. Kind of, again, another guy who kind of gets a little bit of too bad of a rap is Jason Witten, but kind of like that. And so if he wants to do this, he needs to get back in the booth. And the reason, it didn't work out with NBC. Yeah, there's some things behind the scenes, but ultimately, there's not.
Come on,
spicy.
Come on, what's that?
Well, look, there's there is some feeling. Brees wasn't especially into the studio part of it, and then I think there was real disappointment on that Raider-Bengal game where there was a feeling, and people who've been in TV for a long time know that those spotlight games, when you're first going to go on, there's going to be a big opinion on you one way or the other, and you could be neutral, but he really had a poor game, and that was that they put their neck on the line, and so they didn't like looking bad in that situation, and they don't really have, and ultimately though they just don't really have what he wants to do, which is what I've been told, NFL games. So it just doesn't really work. When they signed Brees up, there was the negotiations for the new contracts hadn't happened yet. And NBC, there was some hope that they'd have 2 packages, and that would have opened up one for Brees to be a weekly guy, and that didn't happen. And so he wanted Amazon, and Al Michaels didn't want him, and so he didn't end up there.
This
and
is good.
So
wow.
Here we
good
are.
Stuff.
There's multiple levels to the marketing of Drew Brees.
Andrew, our producer behind the glass, Gravedigger, is a Titans fan. Gravedigger, does that feel good to you that Ryan Tannehill didn't have the worst one-and-done performance in the playoffs this year? That was actually Drew Brees?
That is pretty impressive because he had a pretty poor one-and-done performance. Sure, yeah.
Do we want to, before we say goodbye to Andrew, do we want to ask about this Dan Orlovsky situation that's going on. Him getting moved up at ESPN. Another breaking story from Marchand on Wednesday that Dan Orlovsky will join Steve Levy and Louis Riddick Jr. on ESPN's number 2 NFL TV booth, and that's notable for ESPN.
Well, look, it's really good for Orlovsky because listen to the quarterbacks we're talking about: Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Tony Romo, Troy Aikman. Besides Romo, those are Hall of Famers. Romo, is an all-timer in a lot of respects in terms of had a great career. Dan Orlovsky is best known for running out of the back of the end zone during his 11-year career.
Rough.
So he's in his late 30s and he's already in an NFL booth. Again, it's only 3 games this year. It'll be 5 next year, but we talk about what we're talking about with Brees is putting yourself in position for the future. If he does well, down the road, if he builds up his name even more so, could he be a number 1 at some point? Yeah, I mean, you have to be in that booth to be considered. You look at Chris Collinsworth's career; he was a pretty good receiver, but not a Hall of Famer. And he built up. He was further down the depth chart when he first started. I think NBC was where he first started, and then he just kept moving up, and now he's a $12.5 million a year analyst, which in this day and age is cheap, but it's still pretty good money for 6 months a year.
Did you know before Dan?
I think we learned together. No, I don't know. I don't know if I knew before Dan. I knew things were going on. I knew Fox was interested. He could have gone to Fox for 5-day-a-week NFL-centered show and then do some lower-level games there, and that helped him with ESPN to get that role that Greasy basically vacated when he went to be the quarterback's coach for the 49ers.
What are your thoughts on Levy? I'm really not a Levy fan in the NFL booth.
I like him better as a host than as a play-by-player. I think ESPN has made this mistake a number of times, they put more guys who are better in studio, haven't had the reps on play-by-play into these big positions.
When he's a hockey guy, it was the same thing when Costas was hosting Football Night in America. It's like the biggest sport in America deserves someone whose number 1 sport is that sport. Levy, and I'm not a hockey guy, but I know people love him on hockey, and he's been a hockey guy forever. And you can hear the he's done it. If you watch ESPN, he's done that for 20 years. He knows the game. It's like, if that's your number 1 sport, why are you on the biggest platform on your other sport? Just because you're trustworthy. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm not killing.
Well, they did do the NFL. For people from around here, WFAN way back when, right?
Okay.
Before
if you're Al Michaels, you can pull it off, but it's I don't know, it's too much.
Yeah, we had before there was the Red Zone. Now there's all these shows where they go around to all the. It was actually, I think, called Around the NFL. You may owe FAN money, but where they used to go and Steve Levy would host, and he'd go to Cleveland, and they'd go and they give you the update. So he does have an NFL background, but it's just more of the not being a play-by-play guy. Fully. He's gotten better. He's just not that stage. And the other thing that ESPN kept making the mistake of that they won't have with Buck and Aikman, they kept throwing people together, and their first broadcast is on national TV on Monday night, which is probably the biggest spotlight in terms of the broadcast booth of any booth, regardless if they have good games or not, just because of how Monday night's situated in the week, and it's the NFL. And so I don't think that they kind of were put in there, down 28-3 a little bit.
And I'm sorry you got sucked into that. Gregg likes to start a feud with the ESPN Monday Night Football announcer every couple of years, and he's working on a new one.
Nah, that's not true.
Well, who you got now? Who are you going to go after?
There's
Buck,
no one.
Aikman,
No. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
That's true.
We're big Buck and Aikman fans.
There you go. So it's over. The feuds are done.
You've said it all. Check him out on the New York Post. Check him out. He's the co-host of Marchand and Orend Sports Media Podcast. And thank you, buddy. We always love having you on for your insight and your news-breaking ability, and best of luck in the upcoming season.
Great. My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, there he goes, Andrew Marchand. I love Al Michaels dismissing Drew Brees out of hand.
Get this guy out of here.
Next.
And the whispers that he didn't want to go too into, but you could read between the lines of the Brees in the studio. The off-field fit might not have been a culture fit. That's what when he said there was some other stuff that he hadn't been reporting, it just felt like, to be nice about it, maybe it wasn't a fit personality-wise. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yep. And make sure you follow Andrew on Twitter because he's on top of everything.
I liked when Claybon asked him if he knew before Orlovsky knew, because that is something I was thinking of asking. Because sometimes he's probably breaking the news that the people don't even know, and how do you handle that? How do you handle that? Like emotionally, morally.
We could have done another an hour with Marchand because our show just has this need for knowledge in this realm.
Hyper personal too.
All right. So as promised, it's time now to open up the mailbag. We don't do it too often. In fact, a couple months ago, I threw out our mailbag prompt, and the questions, they just weren't up to snuff.
Whoa.
So we canned the mailbag seg.
Oh.
So this was a chance for the listeners to really establish themselves once again as difference makers. And Justin, you were curating the mailbag for today's episode. How'd you feel about what the listeners brought?
There was some good stuff. There was a lot of very team specific stuff that's I'm going to ask about my team. That's I don't know how much we're going to get into that.
Right?
Why not?
Well,
because
whatever.
That's the mailbag is a great time to sort of hit some teams and topics we wouldn't normally. So
we'll hit
saying
some.
For the future.
For sure, we'll hit some.
It's like we haven't had a lot of trying to think of a team here.
Throw a team out.
Jaguars talk.
Let's start with the Jaguars.
All right, there you go. That's why it's a mailbag, baby.
All right. First question. Do you think Trevor Lawrence will have a glow-up in year 2? With Doug P. at the helm, I think they'll be better, but that wide receiver core is bad. Is Christian Kirk really the answer? Bonus question. Will Gregg Rosenthal release that emo ep? Emo revival is very hot right now.
We were never an emo band. We were... I've said this on the show before. If I had to try to compare us to a band, maybe the Dead Milkmen, a little jokey and
tapes?
Indie and something like that.
The Delaware tapes that were promised.
I never promised anything.
Remember this?
I'm so hungry. We need your help. We need this.
Who is this again?
Come on, Gregg.
These are your kids.
The kids.
We are the future. Will you be my dad? We need your help, Gregg. Can I trust you? Hey, Dad.
Can I trust you?
We must listen to Delaware. Do it for us.
Yeah, to recap any listeners that weren't with us 5 years ago.
We need your help, Gregg.
Still going?
We need Delaware.
That is Dan using his...
We need to listen to Delaware. It's up to you.
It's up to you. It's not just my children. It's children all across the Southland, children across the world that need it. Because the reason why...
Right, but also using them to ask different questions that maybe were in your mind that made you laugh just now. Do I trust you? So we got to learn about Dan's
No, the reason why
the
we're
voice of
hearing
the future.
The children was because we once offered Gregg, we would make listeners would make a sizable donation to some type of children's charity if you let us hear the tapes of your... Claybon was going to pick the children's charity.
Oh, okay.
Some orphanage or something like that. Okay. If Gregg just played the tapes. And to think that Gregg actually turned that down.
I don't have the tapes. Are the tapes
out there?
This great listener is, wanting some Trevor Lawrence content. I'm going to give it to him.
He knew better. He's asking for the tapes. We're going to talk about the tapes.
I think Trevor Lawrence was such a fascinating...
I think we need the tapes, Gregg.
All right. We got it to you. He was such a fascinating guy to watch because, you want to put something into the 16 games that he actually played, and it wasn't great. I think what he was as a rookie, you saw the timing, the flashes, the good stuff, and it felt like as the season went along, he was just trying to not make mistakes. He was just trying to not blow things, and I think that made sense on that team. He was trying to make his touchdown interception ratio not totally fall apart, and he was a little hesitant. So I'm very optimistic that he's going to be way better. It reminds me a little bit of what the Patriots did in the last offseason. Yeah, they didn't get the greatest group of players around Mac Jones, but they went from like league worst to somewhere in the lower middle of the pack. And I think that's kind of what the Jaguars did.
Replaced
Same
Josh
thing with
McDaniels with Matt Patricia. But we'll talk about that on another show.
No, I'm saying that's what they did in 2021 when they spent all that money.
Got it.
And in this case, you're playing league worst coaching too with another middle maybe of the pack coach. And so that's going to help him so much that I'm very optimistic.
Having your head coach not like be on a 1-year mission to be an unmitigated asshole to everybody he sees in the world.
I thought I've said this on the show. Like, I'm very bullish on the Jaguars improving this season. I'm bullish on Trevor Lawrence, I think, who comported himself with a lot of dignity and got through that season despite being a kid. And he also made a handful of the prettiest throws of any rookie quarterback last year.
But the football was bad overall to the point where, okay, this is a generational guy on paper.
Right.
That, like, if he was Andrew Luck or Patrick Mahomes, wouldn't we have seen it a little more? A little more.
It's a generational bad coach and a bad bad environment. It's almost like, I see what you're saying. It's fair that maybe we should have seen more. Like Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions his rookie year, but he also threw 27 touchdowns and had some great drives as the season went along down the stretch of games. Maybe we didn't see enough of that.
My point is, like, what's fair for expectations? Like, if Trevor Lawrence is a league average starter this year, I think you got to be really happy if you're the Jaguars. That's a big step up. That said, if you had gone into, like, when he was drafted, he's going to be a league average starter after 2 years. Well, that is lower than, like, what we saw out of Kyler Murray or some of these other guys that have come out guns blazing. That might be lower than Mac Jones is this year. So it's just tricky to where you put that expectations where people are going to actually be happy.
You've kind of annoyed me because last show you were talking about how you wanted to save takes and you didn't want to burn off takes.
Now I'm making takes.
No, but now you have that. I'm thinking about that now. And I'm also thinking about, we were talking about the Lions and trying not to get too bullish on the Lions. I'm going to do the same thing with the Jaguars. By the time September comes around, I'm going to have that team as 13-4 or whatever. Oh, wow. And it's going to be ridiculous.
You're high on him, which makes total sense. The draft nicks all would take him number one, not even thinking again, and that makes total sense.
All right, before we jump into another question, let's take a quick, responsible break. All right, what else we got?
All right, moving on. Which team is the, quote, Andy Dalton scale of teams? All teams above them are probably good, and all teams below them are probably bad.
Historically, or like in the 2022 landscape, how do you want to tackle this?
At first blush, I'm thinking historically, and I don't know if it's because I heard it from the voice of one Justin Graver, but I'm just going to say the Tennessee Titans.
Oh,
a traditionally good team.
You know that hurts him too.
Yeah, it's tough
over the years. Yeah. But what about
hard.
this year? This year, that's even true.
It feels kind of true this year.
Now that when you asked, I'm thinking more about this year because that was what the scale was. It sort of moved up and down based on the year. For this year, I would go Vikings, which actually isn't a bad answer for the last 10 to 15 years. They feel very much like they're going to be stuck in the middle no matter what.
I got another option in the other conference, the Raiders.
Okay.
They're kind of like, if you're
right now, the Raiders.
Like right now, the last couple of years, if you're on this side,
not the last 20 years, certainly they've been terrible.
Right.
But in this year,
I'm talking about the recent NFL. If there's an all-time Dalton scale team, I don't know, that might be a little too broad to really drill down on.
This year though, I think the Raiders are a great answer. I even felt they were kind of like that last year. Really, like Chargers, you should have probably won that game.
All right, what else we got?
All right, moving on. This is a more fun one. Is watching Commanders games while going commando a proper way to show support?
So
I know what Carson Wentz's answer would be to this one, no doubt.
As we all know, excited to really go ahead and start to take command.
And you should know, he was not wearing underpants on the plane when he said that.
The quote really comes into context when you think about it being somebody not wearing underpants.
Well, it's a better question for Mark. Famously, not a huge fan of underwear.
No,
I'm not doing that.
He finally changed his ways, but for probably the first 5 years we knew him, that was his thing, and it would be distracting to me because I'd be like, the only thing separating us is a thin layer of denim.
Although at least he wore jeans it wasn't like gym shorts or anything.
That feels so uncomfortable. Jeans?
Seems like a bad idea.
It's a very Sessler thing, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's something if you live in a commune in Colorado for a while, you're probably not wearing underpants. Underpants is a funny word, by the way.
Super funny.
Yeah.
Like, underpants is way funnier than underwear.
Yeah, it's
The
true.
old
It's very
underpants ad
descriptive.
read was always one of my favorites.
Yeah, underpants.
The underpants era.
Underpants.
You guys ever read Captain Underpants?
I've read it to my children, yes.
Yes, huge when I was in elementary school. All right.
Nice flex.
For Gregg, which fan base is the most tiresome on Twitter these days?
I would say the Bears. I have a theory. When you're a once proud franchise that has a quarterback problem, or hasn't had a quarterback in a while. Now Fields I like, but especially under Trubisky, they were a tough situation. So I'm gonna go Bears right now because it's like the once proud franchise that like doesn't want to believe they are where they are right now.
Okay.
Good answer.
What do you got, Claybon?
I mean, everybody's equally annoying. You've got these annoying people in all of these fan bases, and they all have their particular trials and tribulations.
But there's just more of them in like the Patriots or the Bears or the Giants.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, in fact, you've convinced me, Gregg. Patriots fans are the absolute worst.
Yeah, that's the safe answer. This new, I talked about it on Tuesday's show, this new breed of vocal Browns fans, very much on my radar.
Oh yeah.
So that would be my vote, but only only of a fraction of that fan base. I don't know how big the fraction is, though.
I'm just glad you didn't say the Titans.
All right, let's give them a break.
Who is the anti-team of ATL? Not necessarily the team you all collectively dislike, but the team you all collectively feel the most meh about.
Well, Wes used to talk about the Bermuda Triangle of NFL coverage that we fell into, and he did a good job pumping up those AFC and NFC South teams. That would be my first.
Right, he would say the Panthers,
the Texans,
and the
maybe.
The Commanders over the years in their different iterations has definitely been the team I was the most anti because of the way that they were run from the top down. And that really hasn't changed because of just what's been going on off the field for 2 decades. And it kind of shows up on the field too.
But that's like active animosity, though.
Right,
we're
that's
looking
true.
For, like,
but let's say an
ambivalence.
anti-team of ATL. I guess if it's ambivalence, I feel like the Falcons slip under the radar. I've tried to like stick up for them over the years, but yeah, the Falcons.
Yeah, Houston would be my vote. What else?
All right, this one I'm going to pose as an either-or question. So answer one of the two.
And by the way, I would say this. One thing that I personally... You got to go, Patrick?
Yeah, I got
All right, Patrick's
Claybon,
gonna
we
bounce
knew
out.
he had news coverage. This is actually...
Is there something breaking?
There's no breaking. It's a
Okay.
scheduled hit. So
tell him no.
This has been really your move actually on the Around the NFL podcast.
Yeah,
this is a throwback
we're
move.
getting back to tradition.
He would have to run downstairs, you remember, from
Yes.
our old studio down to the news
Like
desk. See you,
those
Patrick
children,
Claybon.
those unnamed children asking, can we trust you, Gregg? No one asks that. The news acumen, and we could trust what comes out of Patrick Claybon's mouth
appreciate you
when
guys.
he's behind the camera. Or
Thanks,
in front
Patrick.
Of it.
Thanks,
Thank you guys.
There, buddy. There you go, buddy. All right. I was going to say, I think one thing we collectively strive for on this show is to give teams coverage, the old inside the NFL philosophy. So the fact that we highlighted, for instance, Houston and Atlanta, maybe that's a goal for us, Gregg, to maybe give them a little more shine. But teams also...
Houston, since Watson trade, has been about as off the radar as an NFL team can
Right.
be.
I was going to say teams kind of earn being ignored on this podcast typically, either through irrelevance or just being boring. So
For the
it's
most
kind of a
part, that's true.
balance.
The West always had a problem with their Titans coverage because they were in that middle and they had a chance to be better. So
Right.
in theory, the middle should get more than the bottom. But the secret is I don't know if it's a secret. Like the bottom's more interesting.
Yep.
There's more going on.
Yep.
All right. Which 2021 playoff team is most likely to miss the playoffs,
Oh, this is a
or
question. Okay.
which below 500 team is most likely to make the playoffs?
Okay, I
Right,
got to
so
refresh
obviously-
myself and think about who was in the postseason a year ago. I mean, it's got to be the Steelers. It's just crazy because I wouldn't totally discount the Steelers from getting it together. But the Steelers, Raiders, Cardinals are the ones that pop off right off the bat. Titans, maybe close. Sorry.
Yeah, the Cardinals are on my radar a little bit because I just don't think it's a very healthy vibe there. But they also do have some really talented players, including a a star quarterback who's a little embattled right now, but we'll see how that goes. Steelers I think are the pick for me as well, just because of what you said.
I'm taking it back, actually. I'm going Cardinals. I have no faith in it. Like, when I saw the over-under for Cardinals is like a winning team, I just feel like there's absolutely a chance, at least, that they're picking in the top 5 next year.
Did you hear that I said Cardinals?
Yeah, but
okay.
I'm now, once you said it.
Because you almost said it like I didn't say it.
No.
Like you had brought it up.
No, once you said it, I suddenly was transported back to SoFi Stadium, January 17th. My kid's going absolutely crazy. And then I look at this roster. When I did the projected starters for the NFC West, they got a lot of problems. Like, they have big holes, and Kyler Murray and some things make up for it. I feel like they could be back in the playoffs, but there's a scenario where they're 4-13 and they're just terrible. And I don't know if I can say that about almost any other team. And the whole thing
gets blown up.
Right, where there's about any other team in the play that made the playoffs.
Our friend of the show.
Sorry, Arizona.
And my longtime friend, Jason Zumwalt, I sat in the second to top row of the upper deck watching the Rams obliterate the Cardinals. Watching that Kyler Murray give up pick 6 that turned the game into a celebration at SoFi. And then I just realized that, again, Jason Zumwalt, Arizona sports fan, got excited for a Game 7 between the Suns and Mavericks that turned into the definitive Game 7 trouncing that we've ever seen. I didn't know this, that Gravedigger, by the way, is a Dallas native and is a big Mavericks fan. He's wearing a Mavericks t-shirt. So Zumwalt, in the span of a couple of months, was at the playoff game where the Cardinals organization went up in flames. And then a Game 7, all Game 7s will be judged by that in terms of no-shows.
That I always say, like, some blowouts are entertaining. Seahawks, Broncos in the Super Bowl, it was entertaining for most of it, because you were just like, I can't believe this is happening. And I feel like that Suns game was like that, just as a study of like human nature, to see them score 27 points in the first, and the way the crowd was falling apart. I don't know. It just, I'm with you.
Let's do a couple more. What do you got?
I got 2 more. This one is a little more thoughtful. Which current NFL player would you like to write a biography about, and why?
Oh, we would be writing it.
You would be writing a biography about an NFL player. So you get spend a season with them.
On paper, like, Rodgers would be a fun one to read, but I don't want to write it. I don't want to spend...
hang out with them.
Yeah,
you probably see things that you could never unsee.
I don't want to see it. All right, I got 2. Yeah, because it kind of goes with, like, who do I want to hang out with? Who would be fun? 2 very different books. The first is Lamar Jackson. It's a little early to write about it, but spending a season with him, I just think he's an interesting guy. We don't know a lot about him. This season in particular is interesting. At some point, a Lamar one I think would be fun. Maybe it's a little early. The other one is a totally different type of book, which would be a Dan Campbell book. Just think he's been around. He's been a player. He's been an assistant coach. He's been around. This isn't so much a biography as maybe a season in life, the type of books that Paul Zimmerman used to write following Weeb Eubank around. Like, I would be into like a Dan Camp, because I think he's an intelligent guy too, and you kind of think of him as a meathead. I think there's a lot going on there.
That's a good one. I like that.
And I guess we'll get a little bit of that with Hard Knocks.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin would be kind of interesting to learn about.
Yeah.
Like, what makes him tick? Like, what's his deal? Like, how does he feel about things? I'd love to find out.
The Steelers are some great books back in the day, and that culture and the organization. Absolutely.
And he's been at the center of the AFC for a long time. Just a lot of stories there. I'll go with Tomlin, but I feel like one's going to pop in my head. But for now, I'll go with him. What about a biography that focuses on Zach Wilson's 2022 offseason turning into a little thick boy, and then proceeding to take the NFL by storm? But
from boy to man, the book ends.
He's definitely hit the weight room. Looks beefy.
He's a little beefy thick boy. That's the name of the biography. Forward by Gregg Rosenthal, actually. And then the book ends at the onset of training camp. So we really get to craft a story that of a boy becoming a man, becoming a little thick boy, and then it just ends as training camp begins. There's no way it could have a bad ending. It's just a moment in time.
We need some authors out there to go out and do it. I know access isn't the same, but we just don't have the same types of season in the life books. There was that Jets book, like that was great.
Play Like You Mean It.
That's not what was that what it was called?
Play Like a Jet?
No. Oh, Play Like You Mean It was the Rex Ryan biography that I read and wrote about for this website years ago.
We're thinking of Collision Low Crossers. Books like that, like A Season in the Life, like actually getting an actual feel. You don't get those anymore.
All right, is that it? Was there any others?
I got one more as we head into the off season, the meat of it, really. What is the most tiresome off season trope?
Oh, so many to choose from. I think best shape of my life is always the go-to, the standard bearer for me. Also, the trope. I'm playing everything is slowed down for the second-year quarterback.
Ahead of schedule in terms of injuries.
Ahead of schedule is a great one. But I really do like for instance, speaking of my little thick boy, that storyline, you're going to read a lot of notebooks leads in August about how all the second-year quarterbacks, including Zach Wilson, everything's just opened up for me this year. I'm seeing the field in a way that I wasn't seeing as a rookie. And then it's like they never say that in year one. They're never like, I can't see anything. Everything's a blur to me. But then you come 8 months later and you're like, last year, what a joke. I shouldn't have even been on the field. But this year, different. Also, Draft Bust X looks ready, like he's ready to turn the corner, is a good one.
Right. It's usually, and it's unfortunate because there are turnarounds, but it's mostly like, oh, this totally disappointing aspect of last year is going to be fine now because we're in the off season.
I do like OK quarterback X reminds veteran player Y of Brett Favre. That's a good one.
I don't know if you want to be reminded of Brett Favre right now. He's being sued for literally stealing money from the state of Mississippi that was supposed to go to children. It's a tough spot for.
Did you read the story?
The Favre story?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've been totally into this story because it's just like
I thought there were different levels of corruption. Like some people knew where the money was going and some people didn't. And I thought Favre was in the group of people that didn't realize it. But listen, maybe you read it closely.
The $1 Million Man is involved, and it's absolutely a story. Like
Ted DiBiase and his son are involved, and they knew exactly where it was going. Anyway, before we sign off for the weekend, we have not done this in a while, and thank you to everybody who sent in letters to the virtual mailbox. What's in the box? Let's do a little culture recommendations.
Ooh, I like it. I've got, how many do you have? I've got too many, so I got to cut it down.
I got a couple. Why don't you start?
Okay. I'm going to go with a movie that I felt like got no pop last year, but I enjoyed it so much. Come On, starring Joaquin Phoenix.
You are such a Joaquin head.
I am a big Joaquin Phoenix fan, and it was nice to see him just be a normal guy.
That's
It wasn't
nice.
like a huge storyline. Basically, he ends up watching, it's an uncle movie, like probably the greatest uncle movie of all time. Watches his nephew. He lives in New York, watches his nephew for like a month. It's good on like family and that sort of love. And it was just great. Really well done by the guy, Mike Mills, who did 21st Century Woman, I believe, and some other good movies. Beginners, starring Ewan McGregor.
You had me at uncle movie.
Yeah, it's very much an uncle movie.
I'm an uncle.
It's terrific.
Lily and Kelty back in New York. All right. I read a book in Mexico, the 90s, a book by Chuck Klosterman. Always loved Klosterman. But this is the book I feel like he was always meant to write, just drilling down into what made the 90s and how different the world is now. And you and I both are formative years were in the 90s, and also people of our age group, like born in late 80s, late 70s, early 80s, were the last generation that knows what it was like before the internet and what it was like after the internet. And it kind of just digs into everything from a tech standpoint to a culture standpoint and how things have radically shifted over that time. So if you're interested in that,
he's like a 90s, not an icon, but I certainly think of him as like a cultural critic of the 90s.
Absolutely. And he, it's said that, it takes about 20 years. Every new generation tends to be intrigued by whatever generation existed 20 years earlier. And I feel like younger people are really plugged into 90s culture now. If you actually lived through it, it's really interesting to kind of break down what it meant to grow up and how the 90s impacted everything that followed. Did you know, according to this book, it's been disputed by some other journalists, not according to the book, but Bill Clinton sent 2 emails when he was president of the United States.
What?
That's what he said. But then it was refuted.
He would never lie.
Yeah, exactly. Bill Clinton. There's a really good Bill Clinton breakdown in that book as well. So anyway, the 90s, a book by Chuck Klosterman. What else?
I'll jump off with a book then too. The new Emily St. John Mandel book. I feel like people know her now because Station 11 was her book that popped into a big HBO miniseries. I like Station 11 as a book, but I love Sea of Tranquility, which is her new book, and I really like Glass Hotel, which was the book before, and like each one of her books have gotten better, and you absolutely should read Glass Hotel before Sea of Tranquility because it's kind of a sequel. There's some time travel element involved, but it's very much a pandemic book without feeling like it's bashing you over the head with a pandemic book, and I thought it was so smart. Such a quick read too, and I don't know. She is just like extraordinarily talented. So I would say both those books, but the new one, Sea of Tranquility, is awesome.
All right, and I'll end it with a music rec. I've mentioned them on the podcast before, but me and my buddy Bob from Throwback Podcast are going to the concert tonight. Gang of Youths. They're a Sydney-based band that they've since relocated to London. Just fell in love with this band. Can't wait to see them live. Great energy by the lead singer. Has incredible energy and stage presence, and I love their music. Very raw and anthemic and hard on the sleeve, and a lot of the things that I like in rock music that aren't always quote-unquote cool is what I like in terms of a band that's not afraid to swing for the cheap seats and really project emotion in an anthemic way. That's what Gang of Youths does. That's their stock and trade. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. And if you want to discover their music, they had 2 really good albums in the last few years, Angel in Real Time and Go Further in Lightness from 2017. Check out that band. You will thank me.
Sounds good. See, I would throw out some music, but I don't want to now. Then that would be too much.
No. But I think if you like, what do they sound like? There's a little Arcade Fire in there. There's a little National in there. There's a little NXS in there. There's a little U2 in there. There's all this stuff mashed together. If you like any of those bands, I think you'll really like this one.
I'm going to do it anyway. Sharon Van Etten's new one and Pusha T, Vince Staples. There's been a lot of good music coming out lately.
What about you? I'm sure you have a take about our friend from Compton, Kendrick Lamar, and his new album.
I don't have a take yet. I need to listen to it more. I need to listen to it more.
Stay tuned for next week's. Do you have any pop culture takes, Gravedigger, before we say goodbye? Oh, yeah. Well, that's the center of pop culture. Before we sign off this episode of Dirty Pop. No, let's hear it.
What?
Doesn't it feel like 20 minutes right now? Wait, how many seconds are we at?
You gotta give Dan credit. It wasn't funny until like the 12th second, so you needed all of it.
It's like the step on the rake. It's not the first time, the second. It's the third time the guy steps on the rake. That is funny. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. We'll be back on, I think, Monday. Is the plan?
Monday's the plan
with the show. So enjoy the weekend. Be careful out there. Love yourself. Heed the call.